First for breaking news and the best live sport.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
It's 9 o'clock, I'm Nicky Campbell, and it's your call. Well, we have been asking why this happened. We've heard the condemnation from politicians, from the community here, from faith groups. Ingrid Loyau-Kennett confronted the men as they stood over that poor man's body. She spoke to ITV's Daybreak programme this morning.
He said, "Don't touch, I killed him." I said, "Why?" He said, "He's a British soldier. He killed Muslim people in Muslim countries and had nothing to do here."
Well, Raffaello Pantucci is a senior research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, a think tank focusing on defence and security.
Before we get the full facts from the ground, I think before we really understand what the circumstances are, get the evidence out, I think labelling something as being a terrorist act has clearly, well, we've seen last night with the English Defence League coming here, we've seen, tensions ratcheting up, we've seen attacks on mosques, we've seen reprisal attacks already, and this is the tinder's become very, very dry over the last few years with fears and stoked about immigration and hysteria about Muslims.
Well, that wasn't Raffaello, that was community spokesman and social commentator Mohammed Ansar, but we heard what he said. Now listen, people are worried about the tensions and they're high. What can we do to calm things down? How do we make sure we keep a lid on what happened yesterday? 0500 909 693 at BBC 5 Live by tweet. You are with 5 Live from the BBC.
All sources have
Good morning, it's your call. We want to hear from you. That's what it's all about. 0500 909 693, and please, you can tweet us as well at BBC 5 Live. Despicable act yesterday, just disgusting what happened. But how do we keep things calm? Remember what we are, remember who we are. Mike Pannett is an author and former police officer with the Met and the Yorkshire Police. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Nicky.
We got you, good. And good to have you there. Mohammed Ansar as well, social and political commentator, is with us. Do you know, Mohammed, amidst the horror of it all yesterday, when the stories emerged of Ingrid Loyau-Kennett speaking to those men and trying to reason with them and trying to stop them from harming anyone else, and the picture of the woman cradling the man had been hacked to death. When stories of deep, extraordinary humanity emerge, stories of hope like that sort of remind us of how good people can be. That's a kind of wonderful thing that comes from a horror like this, isn't it?
It really is, Nicky. I think one of the wonderful things that come out of almost the darkest of tragedies and the most sickening of crimes is to see the humanity in people, to see sincerity, to remind us that we can connect with one another even in the darkest and most difficult of times, and even on some small level it provides a level of comfort, some reassurance towards one another that maybe there is some hope for the future. It doesn't have to be all dark.
Did you feel that, Mike, when you saw those pictures and those stories emerging?
Well, Nicky, I think we've all seen these graphic images, very deeply disturbing sights, but I think the first thing I want to say is, we mustn't forget the poor victim's family here and his colleagues and his, comrades, and in fact the entire sort of country will be all in deep shock about what they've witnessed yesterday, and of course I think that needs to be sort of balanced out with how things move forward, and we all know emotions can run very high. I think as things start to become more clearer, what the police certainly and the security services don't want to see is that sort of emotion turn into anger, because that's not the way forward. What's happened is deeply disturbing. It's probably rocked our society in broad daylight. This most horrific, horrendous attack.
The nature of the murder, the brutality of the murder, the methods used. You mean?
It's yeah, absolutely. I think it's always been a concern. We've seen issues with the Mumbai attacks. We've seen, the security services and police have always been acutely aware that and feared that this sort of thing may or may not happen in the streets of the UK, and now we've seen it happen. I think it's very important that we keep things in perspective. You know, I've talked to police officers, I've talked to people who in the military. They're all deeply shocked, deeply concerned, and I'm also aware that there's a lot of worry in the Muslim community, because any decent person in our society will have looked at what happened yesterday, and nobody would want to see that sort of brutality on the streets of our country. So it's important now that people do remain calm, and you know, they've got to, you know, not let their heads rule their heart, you know, the heart rule their heads. It's vital that, you know, we keep things in perspective, keep it very level-headed, let the security services get on and do what they have to do, and quite honestly, seeing last night, you know, messages coming out from EDL was not helpful, and let's just hope that common sense prevails.
Okay, let's see what people are saying. Let's introduce Hassan in Manchester. Hassan, good morning.
Hi, Nicky. Good morning.
Good. Let me bring some other people in as well, if I may. David in Liverpool. Hello, David.
Yeah, hi, Nicky. Yeah.
Hi, and Hussein in Gloucester. Hussein, you go first. Hussein in Gloucester. On you go.
Hi there.
Hi.
People phone me. Hello. Comes to on the new iPhone.
Hello, Hussein in Gloucester.
Yeah,
on you go.
I just want to basically, and then try and, you know, I just basically the horrific acts in London yesterday, and I totally condemn, you know, anything that's happened, and they need to really put a stop to this kind of thing ever happening in the streets of our country again.
I'm hearing another call on the line as well. If we could fade the other caller out. Hussein in Gloucester, I didn't quite hear you properly. I'm in a radio car. There's helicopters above. There's a scrum of people all around. Could you repeat that? I'm terribly sorry. I didn't catch you. Hussein in Gloucester.
Yes, hi there.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to David in Liverpool. David, on you go.
Hi, Nicky. It just saddens me that you can be walking along the street these days and that a young man, you know, can be attacked like that. I just feel that, you know, you're not safe. Nobody's safe. We don't know yet what the situation is, speculation, and we can't make speculation. Can I just say, as an older man, nearly 70 years of age, it just saddens me. And I just feel at the moment, when I saw what I saw on television, and for ITN to do what they did, it's just shameful. And when I watch News 24, and things now are just coming into our living room, and we're going to see the actual act the way we're going on, and it saddens me to think that people, you know, they're so foolish to get pictures these days on a mobile phone, to approach these people and to actually film these people. And I'm not saying instead of filming, they should have done something about it. But, you know, but it just annoys me to see what's happening and social network. I haven't got this social network. You know, I don't want it. I know you've got to move with the times, but to see these things happening and to be putting on our script...
Do you not think it gives us a deeper understanding of motive, a deeper understanding of why they do? I mean, Mohammed, it'd be interesting to hear you on this. So what do you think about it's never been more immediate, has it?
These things have become incredibly visceral. I mean, we have hundreds of images, we've got social media, we've got videos and tweets and Facebook, and we've never lived these things so immediately and so quickly. I can understand that there is anger and frustration and emotions running high in how it's been reported and whether it should have been reported the way it has been. However, this is the new cycle we live in. This is the world in which we live in, and we're going to have to come to terms with the way in which these things are reported.
And the images that we're shown on our television here are a lot less graphic than in many other countries.
Well, certainly, and you know, we are part of a global community now. When we look at things that are happening around the world, in Syria, in Iraq, and other places where real heinous acts and sickening acts of violence take place, sadly, we're becoming more accustomed to these, although we would never ever expect to see them as we did on the streets of London. I think what has been more concerning for me, as opposed to the coverage, has been the response and the tone of the response from the government. When we have our elected officials in place, we should be looking to them to give us a sense of calm, measure, not necessarily to use language that stokes up
What language
anxieties.
did you feel was disproportionate?
I think the government was very, very quick to react, almost, I would say, in a panic, to announce Cobra meetings. I mean, it wasn't too long ago we didn't really even know what Cobra meetings were.
Well, they had Cobra meetings when they had foot and mouth, so it's a kind of standard thing.
Well, absolutely, but we had a Cobra meeting, we had immediate statements made by the PM from Paris, these kind of things we would expect. However, without seeing the full facts from the ground, without seeing the evidence and having an investigation, to begin to label things as terrorism, to talk about Islamic extremism without having more information, has clearly stoked up the far right.
Hassan, are you there? In Manchester, to be quite clear.
Yes.
Hassan in Manchester.
Hi. What I wanted to say was basically my anger is really twofold. I mean, the same anger I would say as the rest of the British public are feeling in terms of towards the actual act. But in addition to that, my anger towards what is a cancer, effectively a virus, an external virus, and this virus is actually it turns on anybody and anywhere, at any time. It's not just in the West, wherever they are. Anyone who disagrees with them or doesn't like their way, they will turn on them. In Iraq, they turn on the Shia. In Pakistan, they turn on the Sufis and the other Muslim minorities. In other countries in North Africa, they turn on the Sunni community, who they're pretending to be a part of. They're effectively pretenders.
Who turns on them? Could you explain to those not well versed in the nuance of this? Who turns on them?
Sorry, what do you mean? Who turns on them?
You say they turn on them. You said
this ideology of hatred and violence and disagreeing with anybody who disagrees with you. You want to put them down. You want to attack them. It's
kind of totalitarian, isn't it? Yeah.
Cancer. It's a cancer. It's a cancer, and I see it as a foreign cancer. And a lot of the Muslim community are coming out and saying these people are not Muslims. I think this should be something that all the Muslims come out and say that they are not Muslims, because this has got nothing to do with Muslims at all in any way or form. And it is a cancer which they're carrying the label of the very religion, which is why, in addition to the first anger, I've got the second anger, which is directed towards this ideology. And it has to be said, a lot of it does come from one of the key allies of the UK, which is Saudi Arabia.
Where does this ideology come from?
Well, yeah, I guess you have to look in the last century. It's definitely growing as far as a cancer goes. Obviously, you see the consequences of it towards the very Muslims themselves. How can something from a religion attack itself? That's why I refer to it as a virus. It's not. It's something which has come from outside. An ideology which is funded. It's got petrodollars behind it from Saudi Arabia. It's not as simple as just being a part of people claim as part of the religion, but it's not. It's completely alien to the religion. So
okay, Hassan, thank you very much indeed. We've got it. Mike in Bristol. Good morning, Mike.
Oh, good morning, Nicky. Yes,
what would you like to say?
Well, I think the question you're asking is what can we do to calm things down? Well, I think the first thing we've got to do is to stop referring to this as a terrorist attack. I think one of your earlier callers made the point that I want to make, was that there is no evidence that at the moment this was a terrorist attack. And in fact, like millions of people probably in the country, when I saw the horrific sights on my television last night, my first thought was, blimey, there's a nutter about, because that's what that man looked like. He was ranting on the television about, in a London accent, remember this, a London accent, get out of my country, you're killing my wives and my family. I mean, he was the least looking terrorist I think I've ever seen on the television. First of all, most terrorists I see on the television cover their faces. Terrorists want to escape as soon as they can because they then want to commit more crimes. So I just feel, let's keep calm about this. Let's get all the evidence in before we keep talking about terrorism.
What do you think about that, Mike Pannett?
Well, look, there's no doubt there's been lots of speculation, but be absolutely right. Modern day terrorism doesn't necessarily have to have a mask over, and the government's pretty much laid it out that this is how they're looking upon it. It is an act of terrorism, and as I say, the issue is our society, and is there any place for extremism in our society? And the answer is no. But what do terrorists want? They want to instill fear into people, and there's no doubt yesterday those individuals involved in this absolutely horrific attack exactly wanted that to be put out and
we've been here before, haven't we?
People asking to they were asking to have videos made of themselves and things like that.
Mike Pannett,
it's so important.
We've been here before, haven't we? We've been
here, unfortunately, Nicky. Yeah, we have. We've been here before.
We've been here throughout the 1970s, throughout the 1980s. We've been here before. We've seen similarly brutal acts in the name of a cause.
We have, but what I think the things have moved forward is on the social media and the images, given modern technology and has been highlighted. It's beamed straight into people's homes more or less immediately, and this is why it's important that the police service do their best to get messages out. Last night on social media, when EDL were calling for people, they were saying it's an attack, we're under attack. I mean, goodness me, what people have got to bear in mind is from 2011 riots, when people were using social media, anybody committing offences and in trying to instigate any kind of violence, they will be being looked at. So what I was pleased to see yesterday was the quick reaction from many on social media who were calling for calm. The message was going out saying, don't riot, place a poppy instead. I think these were clear messages coming out, because people don't want to see overreaction. There's no doubt people in our country have got huge resilience to what's gone on over the last few decades, and there's no, we must not overreact.
As the Prime Minister said, we do not buckle. A quick word from Mohammed Ansar. You wanted to make Mohammed Ansar, you wanted to make a point.
Well, I think I appreciate what the last caller said about extremism. However, there are lots of people who have very extreme views in society, and if in a progressive democratic society, we have to be tolerant of different kinds of views. The problem is violent extremism, and the Home Office and the government have had some very clear policies over the last few years to try and tackle violent extremism. But as I think Majid Nawaz mentioned on Newsnight last night, some of the things I agreed with around countering the terrorist and extremist narrative. However, some of the things I think are very concerning. Issues around demonising the Muslim community generally, and almost introducing a kind of McCarthyism to say we need to have benchmarks and tests to decide who is an acceptable Muslim, who is not an acceptable Muslim. And these are the kind of messages that are coming through, are very, very concerning. It was really disappointing to see people like, I hate even to mention him, but Nick Griffin of the BNP talking and on social media, on Twitter last night, he was saying that politicians should hang who have been responsible for, effectively how he sees it, mass immigration, which has led to this kind of action. When we talk about criminality, if it even extends to the extent of terrorism, however, we cannot have other people fomenting hatred and violence. Good people in society, our social leaders and our elected politicians, need to be leading people in a calm, measured and proportionate manner towards peace and unity. This is not the time for further stoking of violence.
0500 909 693, it's 9:22, here's the traffic. So how do we keep things calm? Let's go to Johnny in Newcastle. Hello.
Hello, Nicky, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks. What's your point?
Good question. I'm not sure. I've got so many. The last person who went and said, our politicians need to talk and bring around peace. And I don't get it. I think it's politicians who've got us here. I've got no answers.
Got us where?
I've got no answers. We were told that we were going to Iraq. We were told we were going to Afghanistan. We were told we went to Libya. I run our countries here.
Are you angry about Iraq?
I didn't see the point in it. I didn't think it was making me safer on the streets.
Are you angry about Iraq and Afghanistan?
I think we shouldn't be there. I'm not. All
right. So here's the difference. Here's the difference. Then the two men on the street did not think we should be there. They were angry about it.
No, they were.
Why don't you want to what makes them want to take a machete and hack somebody to pieces? What's the difference? What's the missing factor here? Why don't you want to do that? Despite your anger, despite your disagreement.
Mine was political anger. Mine was mine, if you call it anger, as a member of the Labour Party who marched and saying this isn't going to make us safer. And it was a case of the belief in that. Remember, that was the line we were sold. We were going to Afghanistan.
Yeah, hang on, let's get into perspective. A human being, let's get this into perspective. A human being has been hacked One human being has hacked a human being to pieces.
Hold on, yeah, I'm trying to put into perspective where we started and where we are now. People back then said it would breed extremism, and it has, and unfortunately it's bred it on our own shores. A person earlier saying he sounded like a terrorist, he sounded like a nutter shouting. The one thing that guy didn't sound was like a nutter. When he was speaking and that film was shown on ITV, if that isn't terrorism, when somebody is that chilling after he's done that, I do not know what is.
Mohammed, answer.
Well, I'm struggling to understand what a nutter sounds like. I'm struggling to understand what a terrorist looks like. I'm struggling to understand how we see... Well, one second. The question I'm asking is, terrorism, extremism, violence, propensity to incredibly sickening, heinous acts, like somebody being hacked to death in the street, you can't see in people's hearts. You can't see how they feel. There needs to be a broader dialogue about how we go about addressing these things. I think it's not enough to say that we are trying to find a very simplistic and unnuanced way of addressing it by saying who looks a certain way, who speaks a certain way, who dresses a certain way. We have to move beyond this, because that isn't going to help the situation.
Did I go and
say that? You said he didn't speak like a nutter. You said he didn't speak like a nutter.
I said the person before did. I said he looked like anybody else. That's why it was terrifying.
Let's speak to Harvey in Leicestershire. Morning, Harvey.
Yeah, morning to you all. Morning. Where do you start? You know, I'm sorry for the family to start with. How many people are going to be walking around with Help the Heroes T-shirts on? And do you know, if the tables had turned and I'd have gone out this morning and hacked somebody that I thought might have been a terrorist, and it might have nothing to do with terrorism, and if it hasn't, then that's something else we've got to look at. But if I'd have gone out there this morning, yesterday, and done that, there'd be bloodshed all over the country. This country wants to thank its lucky stars that it's not the other way around, because I tell you what, we'd all be in hiding. I don't know where to start with this. You know, let's have meetings about the other way around. Let's bring the electric chair back. Let's just bring... What are we going to do with these fellas?
It's not going to help, is it?
Is it not going to help?
Martyrs.
And the reason why I say that's not going to help, I'm sorry
to scare the living daylights out of them.
Hold on. We convicted people from the north of Ireland, from Ireland, for quote-unquote terrorist attacks in the 1970s, and then in the 1990s we had to go and say, hold on, in the 1990s we had to go and say, oh my God, we are sorry, we got it wrong.
Then we're talking about what's just happened.
Yes, I'm just going to say, you make more
deal with it now.
Excuse me, if you went in and started putting people in quote-unquote an electric chair, you would make more martyrs and they would flood.
Really?
Gentlemen, can I remind you what the premise of our debate is this morning? How do we keep things calm?
We keep things calm by
what do you mean by... Can I
can
I ask our recent caller Harvey there in Leicestershire, what do you mean by... I just want to clarify something. And we'll speak to Louise in a minute. Are you there, Louise?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to talking to you, Louise.
Okay.
Harvey, what do you mean by if the things were the other way around?
If the tables are turned, if me, a British citizen, British, you know, white, call it what you will, I'm not a racist, I love everybody in the world, wherever you come from. But if it had been me, gone down one of our streets in wherever it might be, Melton Road, for example, and I'd have hacked one of my... I might have thought was a terrorist or an Asian or whatever you want to call them, then what would have happened this morning? Then what would have happened? This country's calm. There might be a couple of attacks on Muslims, and we might be talking about all the rest of it. And those that say it's not yet a Muslim attack, what is it? Why have you all jumped on the bandwagon if it isn't? Stay away then. Don't add fuel to the fire. These two fellas are going to be fed, watered, and kept for the rest of their lives. That is not the way forward. You are too...
Civilised? Are we a civilised society?
Civilised? You're a laughingstock of the world. You're an absolute laughingstock of the world. You wouldn't tolerate this anywhere else in the world. They'll deal with you, and that's the end of it. There's no heroes here. At the end of the day, there's no heroes. Those fellas, they was making a statement. They mentioned government's name, Prime Minister, whoever it was. Wake up, government. Wake up. Stop having meetings about meetings, and let's deal with it. Because this
Louise
is
in London. Louise in London.
More of this, so wake up, government, and let's get something done. Because this is an absolute...
Louise in London.
Hello.
Hello, Louise. Hello.
Hello. I'm really ringing because I'm really angry. I just think that, you know, for that to happen here, and people just be standing around watching this, and I know people are saying it's not a terrorist attack, but by definition it has. It has created fear. It's intimidating people. It is terrorism, and it was on a supposed soldier. You know, now this young guy, probably when everyone's rioting and smashing up people's cars and houses and businesses of all walks of life, these people were there protecting us, making us feel safe. You know, if this guy can't walk down the road and gets hacked like some sort of medieval torture, I really don't understand, and I think, you know, that the punishments it's never enough. It's never enough. They're going to go to court. It'll cost millions. They'll probably get 15 years. They'll probably find out they didn't go to a couple of mental health appointments. You know, and what? You know, this.
Mohammed, I can hear your anger, Louise, and your exasperation, and
you know, it's
just sheer disgust is shared by millions.
But I think that all people of all walks who are not happy need to do something. They need to petition. They need to march. We need a better justice system. We need, you know, better insight into what's going on. That people, you know,
Louise.
Okay.
Okay, but thank you very much for coming on. Just a quick word from Mohammed, and it's something that Louise brought up there. The people who do things like this, who call themselves Muslim, part of their strategy is because they have a them in our situation. You've spoken to people who share these views. I've spoken to people who have these views, and they're very quick to say, "You're not a real Muslim. You're not a real Muslim." If you don't think it's a totalitarian mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the one true Scotsman argument, which is who qualifies to be a Muslim, who qualifies to be a Christian, who qualifies to be acceptable in their eyes. One of the things we've begun to unpick over the last few years in looking at violent extremism and the narrative of those who turn anger and hate and frustration into incredibly violent acts has been this idea that they have a siege mentality, that they have a necessary requirement to respond, that somehow the global conflicts that are going on, things that are happening in their old country, often these people have got the merest, the barest thread of a relationship with that nation and with that country. However, they feel part of a global family, and they feel that those people who have been attacked, they need to take some kind of action against.
They don't seem to be commensurately angry about the Muslims who are killed by other Muslims.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've seen recently, attacks against Ahmadiyyas in Pakistan. We've seen attacks against Shias in across the Middle East. In almost every Muslim country which are dealing with
that doesn't get the same anger, does it?
No, it doesn't. And the remnants of the kind of the imperialists and the dictatorships that have been going on across the Middle East and across the Muslim and Arab world, there has been an incredible amount of bloodshed. However, how does a British soldier who leaves the barracks, and we're outside those barracks today, how does somebody like that become attacked by these people? And these are the kind of issues. We've come here in a very sorry state. The question is how we're going to be able to move forward.
Mohammed Ansar, thank you very much indeed, political commentator. More of your thoughts to come. 0500 909 693. How do we keep things calm? And I'm sorry I'm slightly late. It's 9:35, but here's the weather. Let's speak to Tariq in North London and Debbie in Kidderminster. How do we keep things calm? Tariq.
Nicky, good morning. My name's Tariq.
Morning.
You always say it's Tariq, but this time I've just got to correct you. It's Tariq.
All right, let me do the whole thing again. Tariq joins us. Tariq, on you go.
Right. Well, first of all, we have to realise that we are all part of a community, and in any community, you've got all different races, creeds, religions. And first of all, we have to condemn an act which is wrong. We have to first of all condemn it, whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim. And then the other thing is, we have to look at retributions. We must not all of a sudden get too emotional and think, right, okay, who did this? It was a Muslim, right? Where do we go? Let's go to possibly a mosque or a Muslim shop and take retribution. That is not the way any community will move forward. We have to sort of engage in dialogue. Now, obviously, there are a top-down approach. The government will impose policies whereby they want to engage and try to weed out violent extremism. The Muslim community itself, they have to weed out this type of behavior. Wherever you see it, when something wrong happens, it's always precipitated by the fact that...
I'm always slightly troubled Tariq, I'm also almost slightly troubled by the phrase, the such and such community, because there is such diversity within diversity. Muslim communities. There are so many Muslim communities. There are so many different people of different shades and different opinions who happen to be Muslim, who happen to be not Muslim. So, Muslim communities. So, how can somebody who's living with their family, working as a dentist, who happens to be a Muslim, how can he or she in any way be responsible and weed out these people? So it's I quite understand what you mean.
They get together in various social circles. These people, whoever these violent extremists are, they're not Jack in the Box. All of a sudden, they just spring out. We're part of a charity called Dialogue. Our aim is to bring, through dialogue, to engage with people, whether young or old. And it's done in various ways. Either you're in a masjid environment or outside a masjid environment. People get to sit down, have a cup of tea or coffee with each other. You get to know who or where something is just going wrong. You have a good point when it comes to the radicalisation of young people. Certainly, Debbie, what would you like to say this morning?
Oh well, I've got so much I want to say. First of all, Abu Qatada, I have to come back to this man. Now, no one will tell me that he did not know what was going to happen yesterday. First of all, the government should stop pussyfooting around. The time is gone. We are now facing a third world war, which we all know about, which is an insidious one. But when I hear
what's Abu Qatada got to do with this?
Well, he is still here. He should not be here. He should have long gone. Only by the government getting stronger and firmer, I think, will people begin to be reassured.
What's this Third World War? What?
The Third World War is an insidious, this Islam, if you like to put it that way. Now, look.
I don't think I do like to put it that way.
Well, I'm going to have my opinion, and I feel this man has been here too long. He should be gone. Instead of having the government having meeting after meeting after meeting, they should be doing something more radical now. I'm not racist. I will get on with anyone, but I don't know anyone in Kidderminster who I can sit down with any Muslims. No one wants to integrate. They don't want to integrate. They come here.
Tariq, do you want to come back here?
No one. I don't know any immigrant Muslims. They don't knock my door and say, would you like to come and have a cup of tea and let's come in and let's discuss our religions or our
I can't speak for the people of Kidderminster, but I worked in Brierley Hill, which is not too far away from Kidderminster.
And we have a lot there, yes.
And you've got Muslims up in Dudley, Brierley Hill, Kidderminster. I'm shocked and surprised that Muslims have not in any way, shape or form tried to engage with you.
Well, they never ever have.
I myself have got Indians who are on my right-hand side, and I've got an old lady, English old lady, whose uncle built these houses that I live in.
Yes.
We engage with her. Now, what does my wife do? How do we engage with our local? We make food for each other.
That's wonderful. But there aren't any coming to me. No one's ever knocked my door.
Well, if you pass your address, maybe I might pay a visit to you and just.
Well, fine. You're welcome.
Well, that'll be great. Listen, we've got some other news for you now. Our correspondent Stuart Flinders has the latest immigration figures. Stuart.
Yes, there are two lots of figures out today. One from the Home Office. These are concerned primarily with people who need permission to come into this country to work and so on. And the others, which give a broader overview, are from the Office for National Statistics, which include people who don't need permission, so they're coming from the EU, for example. So those are the figures I'm really looking at here. But the top line here is that immigration is down. 500,000 people immigrated to the UK in the year ending September 2012, which is 581,000 last year. So it's quite a drop. The number of people leaving the UK, 347,000. So the net flow of migrants to the UK, 153,000, which is about half as many as in the previous year. And in every category, there's been a decrease. So, for example, immigrants from the new Commonwealth countries, that number is down. Migrants coming here to study, that number is down. Interestingly, from the Home Office figures, looking at people coming here from Bulgaria and Romania, who, of course, at the end of the year will be able to come in under EU rules and work here without needing a visa. At the moment, if they want to come in as, for example, seasonal agricultural workers, they need a visa, and the numbers of people applying for those kinds of visas from Bulgaria and Romania are also down in advance of that changing the rules at the end of the year.
Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. Let's go to our defence correspondent, Jonathan Beale. Jonathan, what can you tell us?
Well, we understand that as well as that Cobra meeting that met last night and issued a statement saying that they were going to step up security at a number of military barracks in and around central London, and that armed forces personnel were being urged to be vigilant. We now know that they have been issued, members of the military, guidance about uniforms, wearing their uniforms in public. And that is that while this investigation is ongoing, that they should conceal their uniforms when in public places, particularly if they're travelling alone on public transport. That is the guidance that's gone out. I am told that this is essentially not a change of policy. It is a temporary measure. I think over the past few years you have seen a difference in perhaps more visible military presence. In other words, you can see guys in uniform walking around the streets, going to perhaps TA centres, or if you're in London, they've been encouraged to wear their uniforms to the Ministry of Defence if they're members of the armed forces. Very different from the 70s and the 80s, when there was a threat of terrorism from the IRA, of troops being targeted then. When they were told not to wear their uniform. You've seen a higher profile, really, of the military, as there's been that public support for them for what they've done in Afghanistan, but Help for Heroes, other campaigns as well. But I think at the moment there is caution because of this event.
Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. You're with 5 Live Breakfast. It's your call, 9:50. Your call here, right? Nick Garnett, you are at Catterick Garrison. Hi, Nick. What can you tell us?
Yeah, this is home to around 12,000 troops and families. It's the largest British Army base in the world. It's not just one camp, though, with one gate. It's made up of a number of barracks, all linked by public roads. And there are perhaps more CCTV cameras here than on average street. But despite what happened yesterday, life on the face of it going very much as usual. I've seen civilian security guards on the barracks gates as normal, checking gates as normal. Now, we heard what Jonathan Beale just said about the guidance that's being given to soldiers, but I've seen this morning soldiers in full uniform walking up and down the public roads, others in civilian clothing, but very obviously members of the armed forces, their wives, girlfriends, children, all going about their daily lives completely as normal. Life here in this whole area really revolves around the army, so it's perhaps no surprise that the work is going on the same as normal. On the base, life is continuing as well. I've heard some small live ammunition training going on in the background from where I am, but otherwise Catterick, a town built on the British Army, is a very quiet place today.
Thank you very much. Here's Adnan in Shepherd's Bush. Adnan, what would you like to say this morning on your call?
Good morning, Nikki. I just want to say that the press is making the issue or the problem more worse than it is. I mean, yes, it is horrible what happened. An innocent man was killed on the streets of London by two crazy people, absolutely crazy. I mean, to calm things down, as you asked in your question, if you give me the same shirt as that man, I am a Muslim, by the way. If you give me his shirt to wear, I will wear it tomorrow in my Friday prayers in the mosque, and I will wear it to condemn these two people who killed that guy, to say to them...
What, the Help for you, that you would wear the Help for Heroes shirt? Is that what you're saying, the Help for Heroes shirt?
Yes, I will. Yes. I will wear that shirt, and I will say to these people who killed that innocent man, what you did not help me. What you did not help my community. What you did actually destroyed the good work that a lot of people in my community are doing to integrate into this society and to live as a Muslim, British Muslim in this country. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying very hard, very, very hard. Even in our mosque, the imam is always preaching about how to be a good Muslim, how to show your real religion to other people rather than these two mindless, crazy people. And I would just like to remind the press as well, yeah? At the end of the day, what's his name? The Norwegian guy, the Andreas Breivik. The guy who killed 77 people. And even the Norwegian government in the courts, they were trying the hardest to say to the world that this is a crazy man. They were trying the hardest. And yet, these two people killed someone and they were standing over his body boasting about what they did. I mean, come on, you can't get more crazy than that.
Well, you sound like a fine man, and thank you very much for calling us. Stay on the line. We're going to speak to Ashka Bukhari from the Muslim Public Affairs Committee. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's the difference between what we saw yesterday? I mean, do we have to draw a line between psychopathy and terrorism here?
No, I think this is terrorism. I don't think they're crazy. I think the reason
how can you not be crazy if you're hacking somebody to pieces?
I mean, I get your point. I understand that they're crazy enough to do that, but are they clinically mad or clinically insane? I don't think they are. I think the reason why they did it, the root of it was foreign policy, and they say that themselves, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and go on with their rant.
But why don't you want to do it then? You disagree with foreign policy? I may or may not disagree with foreign policy. My producer may or may not disagree with it. Why don't we want to do it?
All human beings don't act the same. In the history of this world, whenever you see oppression on a people, not everyone uniformly acts the same. Some people take to violence, some don't, and that's just the way it is. That's life. That's human beings. These particular people have taken to violence and they've taken to terrorism for in my opinion, because Muslim organisations, unlike your previous speaker, who I admire, who was saying that the mosque says, naughty boys be good boys. That's not enough. You have to teach people that there is an alternative route, a democratic route that they could have made a foreign policy change to, and they didn't. They haven't done that for 5 years since the last attack, and here they come condemning it and saying how bad it is. Well, big deal. Tell us something we don't know. We all know it's wrong. What did you do to change it? Muslim organisations have done nothing. I'm not blaming the Muslim community here. They're like you and me. They've got jobs and stuff like that. Communities, yeah, but not the organisations. They have responsibility. They're an organised people, and they should have done something, and they did nothing.
These guys are brainwashed, aren't they?
Brainwashed. To me, again, I don't like using that word simply because what it means is that there's some sort of puppet master, hate preacher.
Isn't there a cultish element to completely buying that narrative? Why isn't there a similar anger by the fact that so many Muslims are being killed by other Muslims across the world?
There isn't a cultish nature. If you look at the black community when it came to slavery, many of them took to quote-unquote would now be called terrorism. They killed innocent people to free themselves. You saw that same thing with the American independence when they started to have a war with the UK to free themselves. The Muslim community,
these guys trying to free themselves from?
No, they're saying, in their own words, or say in videos you can see all over the media, are quite clearly saying that our people are dying every single day and you're not going to get any peace, I think this is their own words, until we get some peace. And I don't know the exact words, but that's roughly translate what they're saying. So they're making a political move, they're making a political objective, and they have done this heinous crime for political motives. It's no good saying it's a hate preacher. It's no good saying Islam is a perverted version of Islam. It's no good saying they hate our freedom, which is all these kind of false narratives that are out there.
But it is a perverted nature of Islam, isn't it?
No, it's a perverted nature of trying to free yourself. It's a perversion of how you should have acted to change a barbaric foreign policy. So it's nothing to do with Islam. Well, to qualify that, Islam says stop oppression, fight against oppression. These people have taken that to a perversion, no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is, the root is that there is an oppression, and that's where they're driving.
There's oppression all over the world. There's oppression by Muslim governments on Muslims. There's oppression by this,
which are wrong. And many of those Muslim governments are propped up by Western governments. You can't deny that. Look at Bahrain, which we recently sold arms to, are killing their own people. Look at Egypt, look at Mubarak, propped up by Western governments who tortured, raped and killed his own people.
Do you blame the West for this?
Ultimately, I say that it's Western...
For that man being hacked to pieces, do you blame the West?
I would say policy is the reason. Now we can start to say, look, who's to blame? Let's point fingers at each other. But guess what? Tomorrow, if we say it's just these two guys, let's take this particular argument. It's just these two guys. They're evil. They're the worst things and since sliced bread, and let's hang them, right? Well, guess what? What are you going to say when it happens in a year's time? You're still going to go, it's just another aberration, just another two guys. They're all mad. And in another year's time, until you realise that there is a reason why people are turning into this extremist.
What do you say to those who say that there's a poison in the ideology, and it poisons the mind to make somebody capable of doing what those people were? You wouldn't be capable of doing that. I wouldn't be capable of doing that. Why are they capable of it?
They're taking an extreme perversion, if you like, or extreme action to an extreme reaction to an extreme action.
Think about what they did.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's criminal. What do you? I don't understand what you're driving at.
To be able for a human being to be able to do that to another human being.
Well, that's pretty nuts, right?
Crazy,
it's pretty nuts. I agree with you, but it's.
Adnan, do you want to come back?
Yes, crazy. Very simple word. Crazy. No one in his right mind will just, because he sees what's happening abroad, will just come and kill people on the streets of London, where he lives, where he's eating from, where he's drinking from. No one, apart from someone who is absolutely mad, crazy. That's the right word for it. And this Muslim brother.
Adnan, you're the man who said that. Adnan, you're the man who said he's going to wear a Help for Heroes t-shirt in the mosque tomorrow, and I'm going to give you the last word this morning. Thank you very much for calling us there from Shepherd's Bush, and thank you very much for all your contributions. Thanks for coming down.
Pleasure.
You're with 5 Live.
They need to really put a stop to this kind of thing ever happening in the streets of our country again.
I'm hearing another call on the line as well. If we could fade the other caller out. Hussein in Gloucester, I didn't quite hear you properly. I'm in a radio car. There's helicopters above. There's a scrum of people all around. Could you repeat that? I'm terribly sorry. I didn't catch you. Hussein in Gloucester.
Yes, hi there.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to David in Liverpool. David, on you go.
Hi, Nicky. It just saddens me that you can be walking along the street these days and that a young man, can be attacked like that. I just feel that, you're not safe. Nobody's safe. We don't know yet what the situation is. Speculation. And we can't make speculation. Can I just say, as an older man, nearly 70 years of age, it just saddens me. And I just feel at the moment, when I saw what I saw on television, and for ITN to do what they did, it's just shameful. And when I watch News 24, and things now are just coming into our living room, and we're going to see the actual act the way we're going on. And it saddens me to think that people, they're so foolish to get pictures these days on a mobile phone, to approach these people and to actually film these people. And I'm not saying instead of filming, they should have done something about it. But it just annoys me to see what's happening. And social network, I haven't got this social network. I don't want it. I know you've got to move with the
Whitehall sources have.
Good morning, it's your call. We want to hear from you. That's what it's all about. 0500 909 693, and please, you can tweet us as well at BBC 5 Live. Despicable act yesterday, just disgusting what happened. But how do we keep things calm? Remember what we are, remember who we are. Mike Pannett is an author and former police officer with the Met and the Yorkshire Police. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Nicky.
We got you, good. And good to have you there. Mohammed Ansar as well, social and political commentator, is with us. Do you know, Mohammed, amidst the horror of it all yesterday, when the stories emerged of Ingrid Loyau-Kennett speaking to those men and trying to reason with them and trying to stop them from harming anyone else, and the picture of the woman cradling the man who'd been hacked to death, when stories of deep, extraordinary humanity emerge, stories of hope like that sort of remind us of how good people can be. That's a kind of wonderful thing that comes from a horror like this, isn't it?
It really is, Nicky. I think one of the wonderful things that come out of almost the darkest of tragedies and the most sickening of crimes is to see the humanity in people, to see sincerity, to remind us that, you know, we can connect with one another even in the darkest and most difficult of times, and even on some small level it provides a level of comfort, some
First for breaking news and the best live sport.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
It's 9 o'clock, I'm Nicky Campbell, and it's your call. Well, we have been asking why this happened. We've heard the condemnation from politicians, from the community here, from faith groups. Ingrid Loyau-Kennett confronted the men as they stood over that poor man's body. She spoke to ITV's Daybreak programme this morning.
He said, "Don't touch, I killed him." And I said, "Why?" He said, "He's a British soldier. He killed Muslim people in Muslim countries and they have nothing to do here."
Well, Raffaello Pantucci is a senior research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, a think tank focusing on defence and security.
Before we get the full facts from the ground, I think before we really understand what the circumstances are, get the evidence out, I think labelling something as being a terrorist act has clearly, well, we've seen last night with the English Defence League coming here, we've seen, you know, tensions ratcheting up, we've seen attacks on mosques, we've seen reprisal attacks already, and this is the tinder's become very, very dry over the last few years with fears and stoked about immigration and hysteria about Muslims.
Well, that wasn't Raffaello, that was community spokesman and social commentator Mohammed Ansar, but we heard what he said. Now listen, people are worried about the tensions and they're high. What can we do to calm things down? How do we make sure we keep a lid on what happened yesterday? 0500 909 693 at BBC 5 Live by tweet. You are with 5 Live from the BBC.
Assurance towards one another that maybe there is some hope for the future. It doesn't have to be all dark.
Did you feel that, Mike, when you saw those pictures and those stories emerging?
Well, Nicky, I think, we've all seen these graphic images, very deeply disturbing sights, but I think the first thing I want to say is, we mustn't forget the poor victim's family here and his colleagues and his comrades, and in fact the entire sort of country will be all in deep shock about what they've witnessed yesterday, and of course I think that needs to be sort of balanced out with how things move forward, and we all know emotions can run very high. I think as things start to become more clearer, what the police certainly and the security services don't want to see is that sort of emotion turn into anger, because that's not the way forward. What's happened is deeply disturbing. It's probably rocked our society in broad daylight. This most horrific, horrendous attack.
The nature of the murder, the brutality of the murder, the methods used. You mean?
It's yeah, absolutely. I think it's always been a concern. We've seen issues with the Mumbai attacks. We've seen, the security services and police have always been acutely aware that and feared that this sort of thing may or may not happen in the streets of the UK, and now we've seen it happen. I think it's very important that we keep things in perspective. I've talked to police officers, I've talked to people in the military. They're all deeply shocked, deeply concerned, and I'm also aware that there's a lot of worry in the Muslim community, because any decent person in our society will have looked at what happened yesterday, and nobody would want to see that sort of brutality on the streets of our country. So it's important now that people do remain calm, and they've got to not let their heads rule their heart, the heart rule their heads. It's vital that we keep things in perspective, keep it very level-headed, let the security services get on and do what they have to do, and quite honestly, seeing last night, messages coming out from EDL was not helpful, and let's just hope that common sense prevails.
Okay, let's see what people are saying. Let's introduce Hassan in Manchester. Hassan, good morning.
Hi, Nicky. Good morning.
Good. Let me bring some other people in as well, if I may. David in Liverpool. Hello, David.
Yeah, hi, Nicky. Yeah.
Hi, and Hussein in Gloucester. Hussein, you go first. Hussein in Gloucester. On you go.
Hi there.
Hi.
People phone me. Hello. Comes to on the new iPhone.
Hello, Hussein in Gloucester.
Yeah,
on you go.
Yeah, I just want to basically, basically the horrific act in London yesterday, and I totally condemn, anything that's happened. And